I can't afford a taxi.
Get a job.
Arnold, that's the whole idea in the first place. Willis needs a job. You get the picture? I'm unemployed.
Then why don't you collect unemployment insurance?
Arnold, to collect unemployment, you gotta not be working at what you're working at before you stop working.
He was more than just a sitcom star. He was a pop culture phenomenon. At just 10 years old, he became one of the highest paid child actors in television, a beloved figure in households across America. But while his on-screen character, Arnold Jackson, brought joy and laughter, the real Gary Coleman was living a life far removed from the wholesome, happy facade we grew to love. Behind the scene, Hollyweird's greed, exploitation, and manipulation turned his success into a nightmare. This is the untold story of how the industry's darker side consumed the childhood of one of the world's most beloved stars. Welcome to Behind the Stardom, a child star in a twisted spotlight. Born in 1968, Gary Coleman's journey to stardom wasn't like most child actors. He was adopted by Edmonia Sue and W.G. Coleman, and at a very young age, it was also discovered that Gary suffered from a congenital kidney disease that stunted his growth. By the time he was cast in Different Strokes, he was already facing health challenges that most children never have to endure. His small stature and boyish charm made him perfect for the role of Arnold Jackson, the cheeky, lovable orphan adopted by a wealthy family in the hit sitcom. But the very thing that made him a star, his size and childlike appearance, was the source of his lifelong pain. By the age of 12, Gary Coleman was earning a staggering $100,000 per episode, making him one of the highest paid child actors in television history. But for Gary, the wealth and fame meant very little. His health continued to decline, requiring frequent dialysis treatment and numerous surgeries. Yet, the relentless demands of an entertainment industry left him little time to rest or to heal. The studio kept pushing, and Gary, despite his fragile condition, was expected to perform. Behind the scenes, his life was a far cry from the carefree boy he portrayed on screen. For most child stars, fame often comes with promise of a secure future. But for Gary Coleman, fame opened the door to exploitation. His adoptive parents became his managers, controlling not only his career, but his finances. As Gary worked tirelessly, his earnings accumulated in trust funds that he had little access to. And while the money poured in, it wasn't going to the person actually responsible for his success. In 1989, Gary learned the shocking truth. His parents, along with his financial advisors, had squandered much of his fortune. The $18 million he had earned as a child star had been mismanaged, leaving him with only a fraction of the wealth he had worked so hard to accumulate. In 1993, he sued his parents and advisors for $3.8 million, accusing them of financial abuse and betrayal. He won the case, but the emotional damage was irreparable. The people who were supposed to protect him had taken advantage of his vulnerability, leaving him financially and emotionally devastated. Gary Coleman's life had become a tragic contradiction. He had been one of the most recognizable faces in the world, yet behind the scenes, he was powerless to protect his own future. As Gary grew older, his health problems persisted. His kidney disease required multiple transplants and constant medical care, and his small stature continued to impact his roles in Hollyweird. Typecast as the forever child star, Gary struggled to find meaningful work as he transitioned into adulthood. Hollyweird no longer had a place for him, and he was quickly forgotten by the industry that had once celebrated him. Without steady acting work, Gary took on a series of low-paying jobs to make ends meet. He famously worked as a security guard, a far cry from the stardom he had known as a child. Meanwhile, his personal life became tabloid fodder. Every misstep, every moment of frustration was plastered across headlines, further exploiting a man who had already endured so much. Gary's frustration with the media and the constant attention led to highly publicized altercations. In 1988, he was arrested for punching a fan who was demanding his autograph. His anger was palpable. After years of being treated as a commodity, Gary had grown weary of the spotlight, but it seemed like he could never fully escape it. His public outbursts only reinforced the image of a fallen star, a tragic reminder of Hollyweird's dark side. In his final years, Gary Coleman's life was marked by physical, financial, and emotional struggles. His health continued to deteriorate, with frequent hospitalization due to the complication from his kidney condition. By this time, Gary had faced bankruptcy, lost his childhood fortune, and fought multiple legal battles just to survive. Gary's personal life was equally troubled. His marriage to Shannon Price, whom he met while working on a film set, became another source of heartache. Their relationship was volatile and often made headlines for all the wrong reasons. In 2010, tragedy struck once again. After a domestic dispute, Gary suffered a fall that led to a fatal brain hemorrhage. He died shortly after, at just 42 years old. The circumstances of his death were clouded by controversy, with many questioning whether he received proper care in his final moments. Gary Coleman's story is a heartbreaking reminder of how Hollyweird chews up and spits out its stars, especially those who are most vulnerable. A boy who brought joy to millions was ultimately left broken by the very system that made him a household name. He was exploited, betrayed, and forgotten by an industry that profits from innocence but offers little protection for the people who give their lives to it. In the end, Gary Coleman's life is a cautionary tale about the high price of fame and how even those with the brightest smiles can be left to fade in the darkest corners of Hollyweird. The story of Gary Coleman is one of triumph and tragedy, of a boy who was once the face of laughter, but whose life was filled with tears. Join us in this new miniseries as we peel back the layers of Tinseltown's brightest stars and expose the hidden costs of their fame. From exploitation to manipulation, we uncover the untold truths of what really happened behind the cameras. Remember, Hollyweird is a stage where reality often wears a mask, because in the land of dreams, the truth can be a nightmare.
I can't afford a taxi.
Get a job.
Arnold, that's the whole idea in the first place. Willis needs a job. You get the picture? I'm unemployed.
Then why don't you collect unemployment insurance?
Arnold, to collect unemployment, you gotta not be working at what you're working at before you stop working.
It's your job, Mama.